Hey, what's up, guys? It's me, Juan Pablo from 100% Finance at 100percentfinance.com. So I'm about to do an interview with a guy by the name of Todd Capital. He reached out to me to join his podcast, and I'm forever grateful and honored to be part of it. So you're about to listen to it live as he answers or asks me some questions about real estate investing, how I got started, things like that. So stay tuned.
This is the Todd Capital Millionaire Podcast episode.
Going live, baby.
My name is Charles Oldesby, also known as Todd Millionaire. I'm the founder and the director of the Todd Capital Investment Club. We have over 200 members in between stocks and real estate. Also the founder of Todd Acquisitions, which is our crowdfunded real estate firm, and Todd Ventures, which is our crowdfunded venture capital firm. Thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African American business owners and investors.
That's right. Hope you can hear it well, guys.
With us today, we have Mr. Juan Pablo. A lot of people know him. He has a lot of subscribers on YouTube. He's actually somebody who, when we were first getting started trying to get into real estate, they pointed me to his videos. So I've kind of been following ever since then. And just thought I'd get him on the show. We're getting so many great guests, so much great content for you guys. And I think last time I checked, he said he's cash flowing about 50 units, which is awesome. So he's living the dream. And I'm pretty sure he can give himself a better introduction.
63 to be exact.
How's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for inviting me. I greatly appreciate it. It's such an honor.
So can you tell us a little bit about who
Just
you
looking
are?
down, my phone's right here, guys. Sure. So for you listeners out there, my name is Juan Pablo. I am a full-time real estate investor and online entrepreneur. And I've been investing in real estate since I was 26 years old. I'm 34 years old now. And I've been doing online business since I was about 30 years old.
Very cool. So at 24, you said 26, how did you get started investing?
I bought my first property in Jersey City, New Jersey. So shout out to Jersey City and the New York City area. I got started by buying that property using an FHA mortgage, which they'll allow you to get into a property with only a 3.5% down payment. So it's a low barrier to entry. And I used that. And back in those days, that's when President Obama was recently elected. And I got that $8,000 first-time home buyers credit. I'm not sure you're familiar with that. So that helped me out a lot as well, getting myself into that property.
And so when you first bought that property, was that a rental or was that just something you were living in?
Oh, when I first bought it, it was a duplex, so I lived in one unit and rent out the others. So I was doing somewhat of a like an Airbnb model with it for international students.
That's really cool. Do you recommend that people buy multifamily for that first property with an FHA loan?
I do, because it's an easy way to kill two birds with one stone. For one, you have your first property. You know, that's the American dream, to have your first personal residence that you own, so you'll have home ownership instead of home loanership. But secondly, you'll also have an income property as well, and it's a low barrier to entry, just 3.5% down payment, and that's nothing to come up with. So I highly recommend it. Yes.
How were you able to manage the tenants and rehab the property when you first stepped in as an FHA buyer?
Oh, now that was a headache, bro. that wasn't fun at all. After buying my first 3 rental units in 2010, in 2011 I purchased 0 properties, only because of property management related issues and repairs. I didn't have a clue about property management. Back in those days, I was somewhat of a nice guy. You know, if a tenant came along and she said, "Oh, I don't have the first month rent," I'm like, "Oh, no problem, Fatima. It's all good. You can move in for just half of the first month's rent." "Oh, you don't have a security deposit either? Don't worry about it, Fatima. I got you." 3 weeks later, "Hey, Fatima, where's that check that you promised? Get away from my door." You know, it's like one of those type of things. Or a tenant gives you a check, don't sign it. You try to deposit it and it bounce. It's like things like that. So I had to toughen up quick and learn the ins and outs of property management. So it took me about a year to get adjusted to it.
So, I mean, I'm going to jump over some steps and we'll go back to those, but
Okay.
just because we're talking property management, now you own, I think you said, like 50 units?
I have 63 units in my portfolio, and I have a 9-unit under contract now. I'm expecting to close the 9-unit about November 15th, around that time. The second week in November, I should be closing.
What changed in regards to property management now as opposed to when you first started?
Great question. So when I started out with a 2-family, I was managing myself, and I bought a single family in another state. So this was in 2010. I bought 3 units in 1 year. So with the 2-family, I self-managed it, and I just thought it would just be, conventional wisdom. Hey, since this property, my 3rd unit, a single family home is in another state, I'll hire a property management company. And I had to fire them because in most states, right, in the state of Pennsylvania, if you don't pay the water bill, the state can put a lien on a property, or the water company can put a lien on a property. And so the tenant was paying the rent but wasn't paying the water. So I reached out to the property management company and made them aware of this issue, and they told me they'll get back with me. It took them 17 days, so almost 3 weeks. They got back to me and said, okay, we'll move forward with the eviction. And I pretty much snapped on them because I said, have you ever heard of the golden rule? Whoever has a goal makes the rules. So if I'm paying you, you have to follow my rules. You got to get these people out. I was very assertive, in my young 20s. And so after they got the tenant out, 3 weeks later, I ended up firing them. Then I hired another property management company. And with this company, the gentleman, and again, it was all my fault. Anything goes wrong, for all you entrepreneurs out there, if anything goes wrong, your business is always your fault. Don't blame the contractor or a vendor or a customer or a business partner for your shortcomings. At the end of the day, you got to take ownership. Okay, so in hindsight, I did take ownership because in the contract with this property management company, it had language in there that even if there wasn't a tenant in the property, I still had to pay them 8% of the market rent. So in other words, if that unit was vacant and I could have received $1,000 in rent, I still had to pay that gentleman $80, even if it was vacant. And then it hit me like, what incentivizes you to fill this vacancy? There is none. So after I found one of that, due to my negligence for not reading the contract, I had to fire him as well. So then I decided, you know what? These are 2 property management companies I fired back to back. Maybe if I learned property management myself, and with the help of the internet and the phone, because right now we have great technology nowadays that you can use those tools to manage properties out of state. And so that's what I end up doing, to the point where I manage my own properties and the properties of others. So I have actually a property management company as well. That's another one of my businesses. Yeah.
What kind of tools are you using to manage from out of state?
I use QuickBooks. That's a great help when you have a lot of properties. You got to use QuickBooks to manage the books. But prior to that, I always recommend for you to start using cheap or free resources. So I use Google Sheets a lot to manage it, but then we graduated to QuickBooks because it's a bit more robust than our self-made spreadsheets, because we have a lot more units to manage. So I use that for keeping track of the books and also putting comments in there. So QuickBooks is really good. And I use contracts, I use LegalZoom, I use attorneys for some of the leases, and that's pretty much it. And we just have systems in place. That's all. Checks and balances. My sister actually works for me. She deals with the day-to-day operations, so I don't receive calls from tenants or contractors or anything of that sort. She handles all that. And I just speak with her, have a meeting with her just twice a month just to go over the state of the properties and the financials.
So you have a team in place now?
Yes, so I recommend that for every business, no matter what the vehicle is. It could be real estate, it could be property management, online business. You start off as the entrepreneur bootstrapping your way up, and then your ultimate goal was to outsource activities in which they are not your strength. Things that you're mediocre at, you're decent at, you somewhat procrastinate on, you might even despise it. Again, even if you're straight at it, you're decent, outsource it. You shouldn't be doing it. You should only be focused on the activities that A, you enjoy, and B, you're highly paid for. So that's what every entrepreneur should have that mindset.
Awesome. So we're going to go back to the beginning, and I want to talk about what you did personally to get yourself ready to invest in real estate.
Oh, excellent. To get myself ready in real estate, for one, I tried going the private money route, where I tried talking to friends, family members, and colleagues, requesting money for my real estate investment endeavors. And I pretty much ran into a brick wall with many of them. And I understand it now in hindsight, because many people say, oh, it takes money to make money, you know, so I need to borrow money from other people. But they didn't want to lend it to me because I didn't have the credibility. So I call it the private money catch-22. You need private money in order to fund your deals, but you need to have some deals first in order to attract private money. So what I did was, being that I was running into a brick wall with my inner circle raising capital, I said, well, the least thing I can do is do some deals by myself. And one of the roadblocks that was hindering me towards my road to financial freedom was a flat tire, and I like to use that as an analogy to represent, you know, my credit, because my credit needed fixed. Just like if you have a flat tire on your journey, that can hinder your progress. My credit hindered my progress for getting qualified for mortgages. So I fixed my credit. I fixed my credit for a period of 2 years. Had a lot of bad stuff on my credit: collections, charge-off, late pays, things of that nature. A lot of hard inquiries as well. Got all that stuff removed, and I ended up qualifying with FHA. And FHA, I'll recommend it not just because of the low down payment, but their underwriting criteria is somewhat soft. You only need a 620 FICO score. Last time I used it, and that's not too bad, you know. So that lesser standards. So I did that.
When you were going through those 2 years of cleaning up your credit, what did those 2 years look like? How did you get your credit from where it was to where it needed to be?
Okay, it was tough, and that's why it's just like going back to that road to financial freedom or vehicle analogy. When you're initially getting started, when you're just revving up those engines, that's the hard part. It's just going from being in a stagnant place, you know, inertia, to the point you start getting some traction. But once those wheels starts turning, you start picking up momentum, then it gets easier and easier. It's a breeze now. But in the beginning, it's tough. So in the beginning, while doing the credit repair, it was hard because you still had a lot of creditors say no to you. You know, when you're trying to apply for a mortgage, you would get denial letters in the mail. So that wasn't motivating at all, you know. And outside of just the denials from creditors and those letters in the mail I used to receive, I also had collection companies calling me, asking me where the money's at, calling me from every private number, calling me from every number I can imagine, asking for the money. So that was the hard part. It was a big distraction, but I had to do my best and practice selective ignorance, you know, choosing to ignore the things that were contrary to my innermost desires. And I just moved forward with just sending out some dispute letters, like these 609 dispute letters, which we have at our website as well. We have do-it-yourself credit repair and credit repair as a service at 100%finance.com. And I started utilizing that to dispute these negative items. And people just don't know that you can dispute anything that's inaccurate on your FICO score or even negative. Now, you have to be persistent. So with me, through trial and error, it took 2 years, but now with our ebooks, we pretty much perfected, so you shouldn't be enrolled for that length of time.
Definitely feel free to plug anything that you have going on. So
Oh yeah, I'm
drop a
plug.
link,
I missed the plug. Mr. Cash Flow, Mr. Plug. Hopefully you guys are
I
enjoying it.
definitely want people to know what resources they have available to them. And it's funny that you said that when you get started, that's the hardest part. It's kind of like that airplane analogy where like the hardest part about taking off is taking off. And once you're in the air, then the plane doesn't use nearly as much fuel as it did to actually take off. And so it's kind of like what you found with real estate is as you do deals come to you. As you do deals, money starts coming to you. You're not actually looking for money. Money's coming to you now.
Oh yeah, now it's at the point where people are reaching out to you, requesting to be a lender, requesting to partner with you. And it's just amazing. It's like when you're successful, then that's when people want to deal with you. But when you're unsuccessful, you repel the money. So that's why I always recommend people, you got to work on yourself first. Work on yourself. Stop trying to escape the fact that your credit is not up to par. Do something about it. Stop sweeping it under the rug. You know, you just it's handling your business. You know. But that's not to say you can't do real estate without credit. So don't get me wrong. You can still do real estate using creative financing, like lease options, seller financing, subject to wraparound mortgages. That works. The only thing with that is you got to bring the time to the table. The time encompasses the know-how. You know what you're doing. You know how to structure this financing. You also have the hours, to be able to talk on the phone with motivated sellers and send out direct mail campaigns and so forth. And it also encompasses you being a networker, being connected with mortgage lenders or other partners, or even real estate agents, property inspection companies, appraisers, the whole 9 yards, attorneys. You have to be a networking genius. So if you have the time and the know-how and the hours, the connections, then yes, you can still do real estate investing, even if your credit's not up to par. But in my situation, when my credit was not up to par, I spent my spare time doing two things. Networking with people I wanted to become like, because birds with feather flock together. And secondly, increasing my know-how, learning as much as I can while I was undergoing credit repair. And that's why I say a lot to people. Use your spare time wisely to make yourself wealthy. If you have a 9-to-5 that's paying your bills, good. But your spare time, your nights and weekends, use that to make yourself wealthy.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. I'm a big proponent of the nights and weekends. I'm a big proponent of people not complaining about their situation and then taking their weekends off or watching Dancing with the Stars at nighttime. It's like, that's your opportunity there. Like, you use the 9 to 5 to pay the bills, and the evenings and the weekends, that's where your wealth is. Like, and it can be just, you go to events at nighttime, you study at nighttime, but you can also be working extra jobs at the nighttime that'll bring in that extra capital to help you build your credit and help you get that down payment money. So like, there really is no excuse. We have 24 hours. It's just a matter of, like, what are you doing with that 24? Are you using it to really just sleep 8 of it and then work 8 of it and then hunt the other 8? Or are you using that extra 8, which is an extra working day in the day that you're just hunting to just kind of BS and not progress? That's cool. But I want to talk to you about, because it sounds like in the beginning you went through a lot of sacrifice and a lot of struggle. It's like, why would you do that? Why real estate? What makes real estate so attractive that makes you want to go through all that sacrifice?
Oh, excellent question. When I graduated from college with a 3.2 GPA, I had a major in business and economics and a minor in statistics. But I couldn't get a job. Moved back home with mom, stayed with her, I think, for about 6 months. And it was demoralizing. I love my mother. She's a great person. But it was just my manhood what was at stake, in my opinion. I was humbled by that, humiliated even. And while I was staying at my mom's house, she happened to provide me with a gift, and it was a book. I don't know what made her think of giving me this book, but it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. I received the book, devoured it in about 2 days, and decided that day, in my young 20s, I wanted to be a full-time real estate investor. I didn't know how. Again, I didn't have the credit. I didn't have the money. I didn't have a positive role model. Grew up in a single-parent household. Grew up pretty poor. And never knew someone to model who was successful. Not even just as an employee, especially not even as a business owner. So within 6 months, I ended up getting a job in New York City. And I go to New York. And I'm working as a supervisor. And I love to compete, love to be competitive, play basketball, I just like to win. And I decided as a supervisor that worked for the government, I wanted to increase my results. So I thought, well, since I'm competitive, maybe some of my team members may be competitive as well. So I created a contest to see if they'll compete in this contest for greater results. And as a result of the contest, I ended up increasing the results dramatically. And I got called into the office by my supervisor, and she stood over, like looking at me, telling me to sit down with a stern look on her face, and said, "What do you think you're doing?" And I laughed, smirkingly, saying, "Getting results, like that what it looks like?" And she said, "Don't you know who you work for? You work for the government. There's policies, there are procedures, there's bureaucracy, there's red tape, there's proper protocol that you have to take. How dare you incentivize your team members with monetary value?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Monetary value? Every time I do a good job, you take us out, to eat or to get some drinks. So aren't you doing the same thing to us, incentivizing us with monetary value? And she said, well, yes, but I'm not sending out a broad email about it. She said, as a result of you doing this contest, Juan Pablo, I'm writing you up. Don't ever do anything like this again. And one last thing. She said, I call this the best advice I've ever received. She said, one last thing. Perhaps working for the government isn't for you. And that struck a chord within me because, for one, I was demoralized, I was discouraged, I felt dejected. Because I walked in there initially with my head held high, shoulders back, chest high, chest puffed up, because I got the results. But I was reprimanded where I should have been congratulated. So I just put the two together. I said, you know what? I said I want to do real estate investing, but I'm just treating it like a hobby. It's now to treat it like a part-time job. So that's why I say use your spare time wisely, aka like it's a part-time job, like you're working for yourself part-time to make yourself wealthy. And that's what I did. I took it seriously at that. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I no longer took it like a hobby. And for 4 straight years, I invested in real estate until I quit my job at 30 years old.
So what did the deals look like going from there? What did your beginning deals look like?
The beginning deals, so I'll share with you the portfolio. So in 2010, I purchased my duplex. And also in 2010, I purchased a single family, so that's 3 units in 2010. 2011, like I stated earlier, 0 properties, because just property management was just crazy. Just trying to learn how to deal with the property itself, doing repairs, and also the tenants. And then 2012, I closed on a 4 unit. So within 3 years, I had 7 units, and my goal was to quit my job at 40. So I started at 26. I'm 29 years old now with 7 units. So I'm behind on the 8 ball. So I went to a networking event and I was discussing the 4 unit I just closed. And the facilitator of the networking event asked me, how much cash flow do you need to quit your day job? And I said, well, I need about $2,000 a month to quit my day job. And he said, that's it? That's easy, man. Just get a 10 unit. Assuming you're cash flowing $200 profit per door. $200 times 10 is $2,000 cash flow a month. And I looked at him like he was crazy. I'm like, bro, it took me 3 years to get 7. You're telling me it's easy to get 10 in a year's time? You know how much capital I had to save? Because back in those days, I was using savings, retirement accounts, on that ramen noodle diet, that red box, no entertainment, nothing. And then it hit me. I arrested my thought immediately because I remember the biblical scripture. If 2 or 3 agree together as touching anything that they ask will be done unto them. And I said, the least I can do is agree with him instead of debate with him in my mind. I said, you know what? I'm going to agree with him. And I ended up reading a book called Think and Grow Rich. Now, this is the second book my mom bought me. So the first book, it sparked that interest in real estate. The second book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, that really accelerated my results. And that year, my final year, like Kobe in the 4th quarter, I ended up scoring 21 enrollment units that year. It was a mix of single families, 5 units, 4 units, 3 units, and the like. To my final year, I obtained 21 units because I started using creative financing. That's why the idea of 100% finance got started. Because I realized as an entrepreneur, as a real estate entrepreneur, you have to be focused on being that synergistic glue that brings all those resources together. Meaning someone else can bring the capital, not you, not your savings, not your retirement account. Yes, you can use those, of course, that's what I used for my first 7. But you have to be an entrepreneur and raise capital. You have to do good two things well as an entrepreneur. Raise capital and get access to deals. And I said that needs to be my only job description. Like I mentioned earlier, everything else needs to be outsourced. Only do those 2 things that you're good at. Raising capital, obtaining deals. Property management, I'm going to outsource that, have someone else do it. Someone else finding me the deal, that's a real estate agent or a wholesaler, and so forth. So I had 30 units by the time I was 30. And when I quit my job at 30, I ended up, of course, buying more to the point I have 63 now, and I have a 9 unit. So even though I don't have a job no more, no W-2, you can still buy properties. Yes, I have multiple properties, more than 5, because many people have that misconception that you only allow X amount of mortgages. I'll say that to Donald Trump. You know, how was he able to figure that out? You know, whether you support his political beliefs or not, that's neither here or there. But as a business person who's a real estate investor, do you think he has more than 9 properties? You think he has more than 9 mortgages? So I had to figure it out as well how to do the same.
Yeah, you start, because I think if you start getting into commercial debt and commercial loans, then it steps you out of that Sally Mae type stuff. And then you can take on state loans that the financing can justify, or the asset can justify. Or how did you get around that 5 unit or that 5 loan issue?
Oh, you mean Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac?
Exactly.
Yeah. Sally Mae's a different story. So we can help with that too, with the late pays of student loans if you're in that situation with the credit repair. But that's a separate note. But in regard to Freddie and Fannie, that's the secondary mortgage market, right? And they pretty much have regulations on how many mortgages they can extend to an individual. Like Juan Pablo, you know, if I'm an individual Juan Pablo, I would keep it capped at around 4 to 9 mortgages under my personal name. But that's why I always say it's the natural progression of a real estate investor. After you close so many residential mortgages, eventually you're going to have to step it up and go commercial. And when you go commercial, the underwriting criteria is less stringent because with a residential mortgage, 80% of a mortgage lender's focus, their underwriting criteria, is on you, the borrower. 20% is on the property. But in commercial, is the exact opposite. 80% of their focus, the underwriters, is on the property and the performance of that asset, the cash flow, the profit. And 20% is on the borrower. So it's smart after you do a couple residential deals to jump into commercial and don't turn back. So would I do another single family property as a buy and hold strategy? No. I will do it if I was doing a flip or it was my personal residence, but I'm talking about a buy and hold rental property. No. Buy and hold rentals, only multifamily. That's it. That's all I'm entertaining. Yeah.
So this is kind of off the script, but you said that you buy a property cash flow $200 per door. Have you seen the rent grow to where you go from cash flowing $200 a property in 2010 or $200 a door in 2010 to maybe cash flowing like $400 to $500 per door?
Yeah, actually that's one of the things I aim for. There's 3 ways to improve the value of the property. So that's one thing you should do as an entrepreneur too. You always want to improve the value of the property so you can leverage it, pull out the equity. And there's 3 ways to do it. One way is through buying it with built-in equity, buying a property, you know, let's say it's worth $100,000, a 5 unit, and you get under contract for $85,000. So you have $15,000, aka 15% built-in equity. Second way is forced appreciation. So that's easy. How do you make any asset, any business profitable? Very simple. You do one of 2 things, if not both. You increase the revenue and or decrease the expenses. That's simple for any business. So if your business is real estate investing, if you want to improve the value, increase the revenue, aka rent increases. And so that's what I do prior to buying the property. If I find out, like this 9 unit I closed in January, so I have another 9 unit, a separate property under contract now, that's expected to close November 15th, but in January, I closed on another 9 unit. So the previous 9 unit in January, the average rent was $575 per door prior to buying it. And then I did research, Section 8 will pay up to $675. So if you do the math, $625, my apologies. So if you do the math, that's $50 extra per door. So if you take $50 profit times 9 units, that's an additional $450 per month. Multiply it times 12 months, that increased the profitability of the asset. So you do all this stuff beforehand. This comes with the coaching and ebooks. I have all this stuff documented like step by step. So that's the second way. That's called forced appreciation. And the third way is just the natural appreciation in the market. You bought a property in the market that's appreciating naturally because it's all economics. You're gonna have an economic background too, and I have a license. I'm a licensed mortgage broker as well. So that's how I know all this, the criteria. I just don't practice it because it's boring. I'd rather buy properties and do online business instead. But in regard to the natural appreciating in the market, you can do it all day long. And what makes the market appreciate naturally is job growth. As long as jobs are coming in, and let's say there's no more new development, the price increase. That's economics. What's economics? You have an increase in demand and the supply stays stagnant, the price or the value, in other words, would increase.
So what areas are you seeing that kind of like job growth, or what areas are you drawn to invest in right now?
I'm investing in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's where I throw all my money at. I'm very familiar with that market, and they have job growth. They have a movie scene over there. They also have Google over there now. Uber is over there now, meaning their headquarters. And also they have a growing industry for mineral rights and so forth. So it's a good market. And I tend to focus on Section 8 areas and blue collar areas, so that I make sure that the government, Uncle Sam, pays me the rent on the first of every month.
Yeah. So can we talk a little bit more about 100% financing? I mean, how are you finding deals that will allow you to do 100% finance? Well, first, can we talk about how you structure 100% finance deal, and then how you find those deals?
All right. Well, let me say this. This is a point I wanted to tie into earlier. I just want to make sure people understand this. Like, people just getting started, right? When I say use your spare time wisely to make yourself wealthy through real estate, what most people do is they say, nah, scratch that. I'm going to dive into real estate or business full speed ahead. Meaning I'm going to quit my 9 to 5 and do real estate or do business full time. Now, that could work. Don't get me wrong, it could work. However, it'll be difficult, really difficult getting started. Not saying it's impossible, so I'm not trying to discourage you by any means. But it's very difficult simply because you might not have had those skill sets that's required starting out, because you're used to being an employee. As an employee, you have someone telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And you also have someone called a boss, a supervisor, hold you accountable for your actions. And they also give you reviews, letting you know what you did right, what you did wrong, how you can improve. But as an entrepreneur, as a real estate investor, as a brand spanking new business owner, you don't have that luxury no more. You have no one telling you, hey, you're doing this right, you're doing this wrong, this is a way you can improve, hey, this is how I'm going to keep you accountable, this is how you perform the business, this is how you buy assets, this is how you structure the finance. You have no one telling you that stuff. None. And there's no one forcing you to wake up early, to stay late, none of that. So if you don't have those skill sets getting started, in which you haven't perfected time management, if you haven't perfected project management, if you haven't perfected managing teams, or acquired the skill set of negotiating, being a great salesperson, all of these skill sets are integral to being an entrepreneur, a business person, and a real estate investor. So even I might say, hey, these are the 5 ways to finance a deal. Hey, this is how you do creative financing. This is how you raise capital. All that will be good head knowledge. But if you don't have the skill sets, the foundation, it'll be unfruitful for you. It's like playing basketball and you're so busy trying to cross over people with this new fancy dribble that people are doing now, but you can't even master the fundamentals of a layup. So that's what I have to say. Get those skill sets first. Because if you don't have those skill sets first, you're going to lose money. And if you don't have that cushion paycheck because you quit your job, when you do fall, it's going to hurt and it's going to be hard for you to rebound from that. But if you have your day job and you're still making money and you happen to make mistakes in your business in your spare time, you can easily rebound from that because you had a cushion called a day job to soften the blow. So that's what I like to drill home. Many people don't understand it, or they don't talk about this. Like, I didn't acquire these skill sets overnight. You know, being very meticulous, being very analytical, actually supervising people, because you might tell someone to do a job, how you know if they really did if you don't double check their work? Or it's different when you're doing your own business, because unfortunately, the only person who's going to tell you, hey, you messed up, it's not going to be your boss, it's going to be your customers, or it's going to be reflected on your credit when you have to foreclose on property. So if you're getting started and you don't have a boss, so to speak, getting started, I highly recommend you obtain a mentor, a coach. And that's what we offer at 100% Finance. Because if I'm talking and my words sound true to you and it's striking a chord within you, then you should sign up. Because that's my goal. My goal is to get you results so that you don't fall very hard on your first deal. Because that's what most people say. Real estate doesn't work. No, you didn't have the skill sets yet. You got to learn that in your spare time. All right, but to answer your question, that's what I want to drive home too, because
since we're kind of talking about mentorship, can you talk about some of the success of the people that you have mentored and coached and what you've helped them achieve?
Oh yeah, this is very timely. So I met up with one of my coaching students. What was it? Last week while I was in New York. So I coach people nationally, and people ask, well, how do you do that? Same way I buy properties out of state. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, but I buy properties in Pittsburgh, PA. It doesn't matter. It's the business model you have to follow. I teach people how to operate their business, real estate investing, as an entrepreneur. So I don't want you posting up late notices. I don't want you going to court with the tenant. I don't want you plunging no toilets. None of that. Stuff gets outsourced if you create your business right. So back to my coaching student, Malcolm. He has a 27 unit that he's looking at now, and he's getting it 100% finance. So I'll tie in your other question as well. He has a 27 unit, 100% finance, where he's getting a majority of the finance from a mortgage. I'm teaching him about negotiating seller financing, as well as using other financing tools to finance the down payment, such as a HELOC, using business funding, and other creative ways of structuring the deal. Also contingencies. Hey, put this in your contract just in case you need to back out. No harm, no foul. So, and he's young. He's 25 years old with a 27 that he's doing right now, a 27 unit. So people are like, well, how is it? It's just leverage. That's the beauty of real estate. If you're able to look at your balance sheet or raise capital, if you follow a system which someone's done it successfully, you can do it. That's the point of mentorship. It's just a model. That's a financial freedom principle. Duplication is better than innovation. If you duplicate something that from someone who did something successfully, who's been where you're trying to go, is way better than trying to be innovative and try it on your own. Yes, you may succeed. I wish you the best if you try doing your own. I want you to prosper. I want you to succeed. But your mistakes will be minimized if you have someone show you the way. If you have a guide towards financial freedom. So that's one guy. We have okay. Go ahead.
How much do you charge for coaching?
Oh, I can't say on the airways, bro, because No. My explanation is because at one time I did that on a YouTube video. I might have set a price, and then if the price changed, they'll say, "Nuh-uh, on this video you said it was da 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 da," and I'm like, "Oh, I gotta just keep that on the website." So if you go to 100percentfinance.com, you'll see that there. Because I'm not sure when this will air, so I don't want to say one price and it ends up changing. So I advise that to all entrepreneurs too. If you're an online entrepreneur, a vlogger, in other words, like I am, do not say any price on the airwaves. Period. Just put the price in written text on your website, so that way you can edit that easily with no problems. All right. Because people will hold you accountable for that. Yeah.
So, was that Malcolm's first property, or did he have other deals?
He had other deals. He had 4, but he was looking for a jump start. He wanted to play a bigger game, and so I'm showing him how to play a bigger game and get into multifamily. But for someone just getting started, if you want a testimony from that, and we have testimonies too on our webpage, 100percentfinance.com. We have video testimonies. I do events nationally. I speak nationally. And I just do a basic roll call. Hey, how many people in the crowd today who were at this event? I don't know these people, right? who at this event who received results from our company. You know, people raise their hand. Hey, do you mind if I just do a quick video testimony? And they say, sure, I would love to. Tell us about it, how your credit was improved through our company, or how you obtained business funding, because we offer business funding, or coaching, how you close deals, and we record it. But with another testimony, back to what I was saying, we had another guy named Ahmad. He's in Boston, and he ended up closing on a 4-unit, in which he lived in 1 unit, rented out the other 3. So he lived there free and clear, no other housing expenses. Plus, he was making it $500 a month cash flow from buying it. Yeah, it's just another set of eyes in your deal. So that's what I do. I look at every deal meticulously, line by line, to make sure there's nothing missing. Yeah.
And it also probably gives them more confidence going into that deal too, knowing they have somebody experienced back in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's just wisdom. A wise man has several counselors. It says this in the book of Proverbs. I read the Bible daily, so you hear me always quoting scriptures because the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Whatever you think about constantly, you speak about it constantly. You know, so in Proverbs, I always read Proverbs daily because Solomon was the wisest and richest man ever lived. You know, arguably, whether you believe it or not. And if you continue to read someone's words who's wise and rich, you too will become wise and rich, right? So one of the things he says, he talks about a wise person has, I'm just saying this in layman terms, guy. A wise person has a team of advisors, a board of directors, a board of advisors, right? But a fool, he says this, a fool thinks he's wiser than 7 counselors. In other words, a fool is somebody who lacks knowledge in the area. That's it. Like, I'm a fool when it comes to cooking. I'm not good at cooking. You know, I'm a fool. I don't have any knowledge of how to cook some grits, eggs, and bacon. I'm a fool. But if I wanted to learn how to cook, I would get a counselor, a teacher, a mentor, a coach, a cookbook, something or someone to help teach me how to be a better chef. So likewise, if you're getting started in something new, don't be a fool and say, oh, I think I'm wiser than anybody. I don't even know when to coach me. I'm just going to try it on my own. Yes, you may succeed eventually, but you'll experience bumps and bruises along the way. So I always recommend, if you want to get started in something new, get someone who's been successful at it and duplicate them. Do exactly what they did. That's all I did. When I learned real estate, I found a mentor, someone who had more units than me. When I went in business funding, I found an advisor, which we offer business funding, by the way, capital for your deals and business endeavors. I found an advisor to advise me on how to raise capital. It's very simplistic, guys. The wisdom is out there. You just got to search it out. And once you do, it's free. You know, reading the Bible is free. Reading books is free. Going to the library is free. Getting an account with audible.com is not free, but it's still cheap. And networking with people is not costly. You just got to go to networking events and befriend people and get to know them. And people who are successful will tell you how they became successful. Just like now, if you're listening to me speak now, you're not paying me for this. But I'm sure you got some jewels from this conversation, because people who are successful have an abundance mindset and don't mind sharing what they know.
Yep, I agree. It's funny, it's like the more you share, the more you learn about what you're sharing. So it's like there's always a deeper level of knowledge and tradition.
Yeah, and it all comes back to you as well. Like, it's like each one teach one, you know? So if I'm teaching someone else, in which I might be maybe a step or two above them in regard to the amount of properties I have or dollars in the bank or so forth. But I end up finding myself in the company of people who have more properties or more money than me. And then I get to learn from them at no additional cost, because I realize I paid my dues. I help someone up. You know, it all comes back. And that's why I'm really grateful for that. You just happen just to walk into your new mentor just by happenstance. But really, it's not by happenstance. It's because you were abundant in helping someone else out. Therefore, other people who are more abundant than you will help you out in return.
So do you flip as well as
I've done some flips. I've done 4, but not actively, because flipping requires work. You know, and I'm not trying to do any work. my main thing is just buy and hold. I like buying assets with tenants already in them. I already know what the cash flow is, because I'm in the mindset of being an investor. So there's a difference between being an investor and a speculator. Speculation is I'm a gamble and roll the dice, buy low, sell high. That's gambling in my opinion, because you never know what the market's going to do. You hope, you pray, you forecast, you speculate that the value would increase. But do you actually know? No, you don't. But with buy and hold, when I buy a property like this 9-unit, I'm closing on November 15th, I already know what the cash flow is. Why? Because the tenants are already in there. I already got the leases and Section 8's paying the rent. So I'm cash flowing day 1 of closing. There's no speculation. That's investing. Flipping is speculation. So I'm a firm believer in investing.
I've heard of instances where people will close and then actually get a check for the rent that came in.
Yes. No fabrication, I even closed deals in which I put no money up towards a down payment. I used hard money, and I got money back at closing as a check. Only thing I paid for the property was to get an appraisal done for $350. And then I walked away at the closing table, and again, I'm buying the property, but I walked away with a $1,100 check in my hand from the closing company.
So it's funny because you always hear on Bigger Pockets, people will complain about inheriting tenants. And it's like, I always see a deal that has tenants in it, and I'm like, man, like the work's already done. They already have a tenant in there. I'm just like buying it. You can see what it's worth, because you can see what it's producing. But it sounds like you're for that. Are you vetting these tenants beforehand? And you just kind of like, what's your process in determining if the tenants that are there are good tenants, or do you just kind of trust the process?
Yes, I'm for buying a property with tenants already in them, because it's safer. And if they're Section 8, even great, because even if these tenants are rotten apples, so to speak, at least Uncle Sam's going to be paying the rent on their behalf. Yeah, but if they are rotten apples, meaning they're making disturbances towards the other tenants, they're destroying the property, of course you got to get them out, but that's what turnover is about. It's just like any assets you're acquiring, whether it's a business, you may have to change management. That's why you're obviously under new management. So when I acquire a new property, again, I have a property management company, we rule with an iron fist, letting people know, hey, there's a new sheriff in town. This is how it's going to go down. And people, if you, that's what I'm saying about back to the skill sets. You got to learn management and managing people. If you don't have any management skills, you never manage processes or people or projects, then that's where real estate investing becomes difficult. And again, people will blame it on the tenant, but no, it's you, brother or sister, and it's your lack of management or those skill sets I discussed earlier. You have to take ownership. And if you perfected those skill sets, you know how to manage teams, processes, and people and properties, then you can shake things up once you acquire a property with inherited tenants.
That's so cool. It's cool because I've always wanted to just buy a property with tenants in it. Bigger Pockets will sometimes tell you not to do it. Bigger Pockets also can sometimes talk that down on Section 8. But the actual investors that I've talked to that are doing it, they're actually super pro Section 8. For a lot of different reasons. They say that if they're getting Section 8, usually they're more reliable than somebody that's not getting Section 8. Meaning that they have to keep up a certain level of standards so they can keep their Section 8. So it's one thing to make sure you're getting your money, but they also want to be on their P's and Q's because they have something to lose, and that's their subsidized housing. That's very cool. So I have a few more questions, and we'll wrap it up. It's been a great interview. I've definitely learned a ton. I don't know that yet have learned a ton. It's probably been one of our better interviews just because the breadth of knowledge that you just kind of shared with us. But what are your goals now that you're effectively retired? I mean, where are you headed next? What's the next step for you?
Oh, I appreciate that question. Yes, I am retired from working a day job because I had enough passive income from my real estate portfolio that exceed my paycheck. So this is the grand scheme I had. That's why it's important to be a forward thinker and a planner. When I was in my mid-20s, after that encounter with my boss who reprimanded me for getting results when I should have got congratulated. For one, don't tolerate stuff like that. If you don't like a 9 to 5, and she said, well, maybe the government's not for you, maybe to you, being an employee is not for you either. And that's why you're listening to this podcast, this recording right now. Because it's not for you, and accept that. But do something about it. Don't be a BFC, a broke, frustrated chump, where you complain and do nothing to change. You're broke, living paycheck to paycheck. You're frustrated because you're overworked, underpaid, and you're a chump because you complain about it, but do little to nothing about it in your spare time, right? So when I was in my mid-20s when this happened, I said, you know what, I'm not a broke, frustrated chump. I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to work tirelessly towards financial freedom. But at that moment, I said, you know what, I'm going to become wealthy, meaning my passive income exceeds my living expenses, by age 30. And by the age of 35, I will be a millionaire through my intellectual property. I'm now 34. I met my first goal at 30 years old, and I'm close to meeting my second goal at 35. I got a year to go. I'll be like Steph Curry or LeBron in the fourth quarter once more. So my next goal is to really make more money through intellectual property, whether that's through ebooks, whether that's through coaching, whether that's through books, and so forth, and having multiple platforms of doing it. So that's on the business side, online business side. But I also want to do bigger deals with real estate as well, moving forward. And then once I got both of those things on autopilot, then I'll entertain my next business venture.
Awesome, man. What's your favorite book?
Favorite book? I would have to say the Bible. I read it daily, and it really changed my thinking. At first, when someone told me about it, reading the Bible, I thought it was ridiculous because I'm like, I don't know what they talking about brethren and thou art and thou shall. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. I can't read that. But then when I got like a different translation, I started reading it, but with a business lens on, from a business point of view. And I realized, as you heard me say, quote several scriptures in this recording, and how it relates to business. Because again, Solomon was a businessman, and if you read his teachings as well as others, it will begin to mold who you are, and you'll be able to see people, and you say, oh, this person doesn't have the character, so I shouldn't hire a person like that. Or this person doesn't have the character, I shouldn't partner with a person like this. Or you know what, this person has the quality traits I'm looking for. That is a clear indication that I should work with this individual. It helps you discern people and discern projects. It teaches a lot about it. Even borrow money, like many people say in the Bible, you're not supposed to borrow money. I can quote certain instances in the Bible where people borrowed money and profited, both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. And if you don't believe me, why would I be so specific in saying this if I was lying? Because I read it daily. And I continue to have that as my default, in my subconscious mind, to the point I always think from this point of view in regard to business. So there's no reason why I should lose. So I say that's the number one book. Whether you're Christian or not, I would say just read it. Whether you say, oh, there's some inconsistencies or some half truths, forget all that. I read the stuff in regard to how it can help me become a better person, how I can be a person of love, how I can be prosperous in abundance. That's what Jesus said. I came to give you life and give it to you more abundantly. Who doesn't want an abundant life? Who doesn't want to be happy? So I say that's my number one book.
Last question is, what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth means to me, it's the PILE formula. PILE is an acronym that I've coined. It stands for your PI, passive income, exceeding your LE, your living expenses. So that's the first thing I did. Between the ages of 26 and 30, I was working towards my PILE formula. I wanted my passive income to exceed my living expenses, not just so it can break even, but by a margin of 150%. Why? Because you'll realize when you do quit your day jobs through real estate investing, you'll find multiple expenses come out of the woodwork, like Oh man, I forgot to account for haircuts. Many people don't factor that into their income statement. Or, oh, I forgot to factor in getting my car repaired because I only do that once or twice a year. Oil changes. Oh yeah, Valentine's Day. Oh yeah, Christmas gifts. Oh yeah, I gotta pay the tax man once a year. Many people don't think about those expenses. They just think about the big expenses. Oh, I gotta do rent. Oh, I gotta pay for my mortgage. Oh, I gotta pay for maybe my cell phone. They don't think about all these miscellaneous expenses. So that's why I say, if your personal living expenses is $5,000 a month, and you use that power formula, which is a buffer of 150%. In other words, multiply 5,000 times 1.5, that's 7,500. That's how much money you need to make off your real estate investments in that scenario. That is being wealthy, where you have $1 over, or in this case, 150% over your personal living expenses. And that being wealthy is measured in time. And that's what you want. Passive income, which is defined as income you receive on a consistent basis with little to no money required. See, that's what I'm trying to point out, man. If I'm able to talk like this and quote stuff, bring things to my memory, that means I was an avid learner that will read stuff and associate with people day in and day out to the point you're brainwashed to be successful. And that's the point you have to get to. You have to brainwash yourself for success so that you're thinking successfully just at a moment's notice. Yes, you can go to www.go100pf.com. That's go100, P as in Peter, F as in Frank.com. Go100pf.com.
Very cool, man. There you have it. This has been episode number 40 of the Millionaire Podcast. We're doing great things. If you guys want to join any of the clubs that we have going on, you can email us at info.
Cool guys, hopefully you like this interview. Please check the link below to learn more, and we love this whole group about this information.
Yeah,
take
there's
care.
going to be a strong